Hello and welcome to another episode of Unfiltered Copenhagen. This is a show where we talk about the city we live in, the city we love. I'm with you, your host Ford, and with me is Rodolfo.
Hello.
And I didn't think we were going to have another podcast episode with anti-immigration in the title, but maybe
It's
we
what's
will.
happening. There's a lot of stuff happening
Around immigration?
Yeah, a lot of people got denied citizenship, right?
Yeah, there's I think just today actually DF was supposed to, and I think has generally voted reluctantly for the passing of the law every year when people get their Danish citizenship, because the only way you can get that is through passing of a law. And so even though they're not really too keen on that apparently generally, this year they actually said they weren't going to be voting for it, which was kind of a slap in the face of all those people that have been here many years and worked here, have families here. Hell, many of them have even been born here. So I don't know. That was like the big news I saw today. It actually made me a little bit tilted or angry or upset. You know,
Are you afraid that you're going to be affected by this?
Yeah, well, maybe. I mean, I haven't applied yet, and I'm not anywhere. I mean, I've only been here 3 years, so I'm not yet at the requirements. But I mean, I'm taking the language test. My plan is to get a Danish citizenship one day. But they keep moving the goalposts, it seems, of everything. Like, since I've been here, they've made everything harder and harder, and then had some cakes to celebrate as well. So, I don't know. How do you feel about it? You're an EU citizen, though, so it's a little different.
It's a bit tricky. Well, me personally, I don't. I've always had the mindset that this is not my country. So if for some reason they don't want me here, I mean, I can cry a little bit, but ultimately it's their prerogative. I don't know if it's a healthy way of thinking about it, or I don't know if it's some kind of defense mechanism that I put just in case shit hits the fan. But I've always thought that if they want to kick me out for whatever reason, ultimately I don't really have much power over it. Having said that, I guess the longer that I live here, and the more I feel, I don't know, integrated and make friends and feel part of the society, and I guess in a way, I don't necessarily feel Danish, but I don't really feel anything in part. Like I'm Portuguese, but I don't feel a very special affinity to Portugal, just like I don't feel a very big affinity to Denmark. So I mean, I think that the longer I've been here, for some reason I started feeling that, okay, I kind of deserve to live here, you know? Like, right. I've paid my dues, and I've been here long enough, and I've paid taxes, and I've been a good citizen and not committed crimes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I've always had the mindset that if they want to kick me out for some reason, there's not much I can do about it.
Right. And I mean, I guess that's mostly fair. But at the same time, like when I came here with my girlfriend, when we came here, it was under a scheme of basically like under pay limit, and there was also some others for skilled foreigners, right? But pay limit is basically just an admission by the state that if a company is willing to pay you at the time more than 350,000 crowns a year, and now it's been raised to 408,800 crowns per year. If they're willing to pay you that much, then they feel that you're valuable to the society for a number of reasons. One, you're going to pay almost 50% tax probably on that amount, so they're going to make money there. And admittedly, no company is going to hire you for 400,000 if you return absolutely no value. In other words, if all you make for them is 400,000 and they pay you 400,000, that's a zero-sum game. Nobody's going to do that. So if a company hires you for that much, they're probably assuming that you're going to bring value to the company and maybe make a return of 800,000 so they can take 400,000 in profit or whatever. And so then that money is then going to be taxed again by the state. So it's good for the state and it's good for the companies.
Yeah, maybe I'm a little bit paranoid, but I have a feeling that that wage limit
is going to keep it going up.
Well, probably, but I don't think that they necessarily created it in order to only have people who are monetarily valuable to the society here. I think it's just a way of saying, okay, if you are an undesirable, like it's just a way of filtering out
people they don't want here.
Yeah, people that they don't want, and it's just an easy way of, yeah, if someone unskilled from a poor country comes here, they're definitely not going to be making, well, probably not going to be making a high salary. So that's an easy way of just filtering out the so-called undesirables.
But that's only one of the ways you can come here, right? That was the one we chose because in many ways that was the easiest for us to get given our situation, right? There's some, if you're specially qualified and you have certain degrees and it's a job that's in demand, that's under a different thing. And there's also family reunification, which we're going to talk about. We have some stories from the Americans in Copenhagen Facebook group of people who were rejected for that and different stories they have. But I just think what was really messed up in our case, or what makes me a little bit upset, is that I came here under a certain set of rules for the most part, which I understood and were stringent enough. And I felt like, okay, like this is not a joke, right? I'm going to have to leave my whole life behind basically to start new. But I'm willing to do that because the rules have been laid out and they're fairly clear. And I think that, you know, we meet all those qualifications, and I'm willing to spend the next 6 years of my life or whatever to live here and get permanent residence. I want to move here. I didn't just want to work here temporarily. And then while I've been here, the rules have been tightened at least like 20 times. Like things have changed all the time. Like, oh, this now the wage is higher. You need to make more than 400 a year. Now the amount of time you need to be here has been raised, and all these different things. So it's like, and those don't apply to me retroactively. Like I don't get the benefit of the doubt that when I came here, they were different. And I guess if the government wants to change it, rightfully so. But it certainly seems like it's just, I mean, it's a little bit of political theater.
But
right?
that's just really a consequence of democracy, right? I mean, is it really any different than people becoming, for example, more conscious about the environment? So there's new rules that make, I don't know, polluting the environment
illegal or whatever.
Illegal or harsher sentences or stuff like that?
Not necessarily. And you can argue that in the U.S., those rules have gotten tighter and tighter, and probably for a long time have been even maybe worse than here, right? But
I think it's all over the world, to be honest.
Yeah, it's just a move towards like populism and I guess just keeping out outsiders.
Or at least in Europe, yeah, in the Western world, it seems to be.
And don't you think it's really driven mostly by fear?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So
I mean, there's probably a certain kind of evidence, you know, like data that might say, okay, people from here either commit more crimes or are more prone to not integrate or whatever the hell it is. But those things are so easily manipulated anyway. It's like cherry picking data in order to get your point across.
Right. But so since one small group did something wrong, let's punish everybody.
Yeah, that's basically what.
Okay, so like 9/11, basically one attack happened with airplanes and let's ruin aircraft flight forever.
Well, yeah, aircraft flight, and let's just say if anyone is wearing a turban now, they are probably bad people.
Right.
Or
well, I'm just saying it feels that way 100%. And the other thing too is like you have to remember that these are not just, you know, this is some politician sitting in, you know, the parliament or whatever, writing some words on paper. It's not just that. These things have an actual real effect on people's lives and livelihood and their families and how they raise them, and whether or not somebody with children that are born here and are Danish citizens, their parents are no longer allowed to stay here, you know, or one of the parents is forced. And so you're separating a family based on some ideology or some political theater or trying to, you know, do some one-upsmanship or some showmanship to show that whatever right-wing people that voted for you that hate all foreigners and outsiders, that you're in it for them. And then you basically just ruin people's lives that have settled down here and made a life here and probably rightfully have a reason to be here. You know, that's what makes me like more outraged, is because I feel like if those politicians actually came and met you one-on-one and realized, oh, wow, this turns out to be a good person. Yeah, I wouldn't mind having them in Denmark. But that doesn't matter because whatever they've written on paper has precluded it or made it as difficult as possible and so on and so forth.
Well, just to play devil's advocate a little bit, for the politicians are kind of just putting forth what the people that voted for them want, right?
Right.
So if like in a way, yeah, I believe that the politicians, like just to paint this creature, the politicians, possibly do not have a lot of direct contact with people who suffer the consequences from their actions, and
Of course not.
and that. But on the same way, a lot of the people that, for example, vote for DF or are clearly anti-immigration are also people who do not live among these
Foreigners
people.
anyway.
Yeah,
They're
these
not
people.
gonna have
They
a
just read
conversation.
stuff from the news, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe they pick up random articles from Exabel, like
Sure.
we do, huh?
Yeah.
And they just interpret it as, oh, these people are coming to our country and are doing all these terrible things that we read, because these newspapers only focus on these terrible things and just spread fear. And
Right, because that's what sells and that's what does anything.
that's exactly.
Okay.
And then they end up voting for these politicians who make these laws. I mean, certainly they create these laws and they pass them because, at least in part, they believe in them.
Sure. I mean, exactly. You can't continue to pass the buck and say, well, it's not the politicians' fault, it's only the people. I mean, at some point, you know, you have to have your own thoughts in mind and say, okay, I understand that these people want something tightening down on immigration to some extent, but we can have a reasonable discussion here and make it in a more intelligent way, or we can do it in a way that's like not disruptive to people's lives. Because we're going to go over some of these stories. Maybe I should just transition into them now. But I mean, these are some stories where people's families are being broken apart and they're appealing the process. And for the most part, they're either being left in limbo, or it looks like they're basically not even going to have a real human being sit down and say, okay, what's happening here is wrong. Maybe we should reverse this individual decision. Instead, it seems to be more like, no, I guess on a whole, we're just, you know, you're screwed. So I don't know. Let's should we look at some of these stories?
Yeah, go on.
Okay. Some of these are actually, I think most of these are all from the Americans in Copenhagen group, where some of these people gave permission to kind of tell their story. This is from Manny. Let's see here. Hey everyone, I received my family reunification letter in the mail, and surprise, it was rejected. Their reasoning was that I miscalculated the time I've been in Denmark, so I've been here past 90 days by a few weeks, and they say that he has no special reason to be applying for the residence or family reunification from Denmark. They said he needs to go back home, which is San Diego, California, and reapply from there. And they also basically said that his Danish husband, who's never lived outside of Denmark and who is a high-ranking civil servant here, they said there's no special reason for him to be in Denmark either while they apply for family reunification. So this Dane, who's never even left the country, should go back to the U.S. with him instead while they apply. Manny says that he was completely appalled by that. I booked a ticket back home for the weekend, and he's going to think of it as a mini vacation, so I guess he's staying positive.
He's trying to think positively about it, yeah.
He said it's not the worst place to return to for a little time period, but he'll reapply Monday, and hopefully it gets approved then. And he said he finds these politicians and rules frustrating and absurd, and he says, as I'm sure most of you can agree. Now, there was some comments after his story were posted that suggest that the process is probably going to take a little longer than just a weekend.
Yeah.
In other words, maybe several weeks or months. So that's like a little more than a small vacation,
Is
right?
it a return ticket?
I hope not. And he seems to basically stay positive about the situation anyway in the comments. And I think this is probably one of the less egregious ones. Like,
so he overstayed.
He overstayed here. I guess he stayed and miscalculated the time that he was supposed to apply, because they're very strict. I know myself, because I have to apply for a renewal here pretty soon. And they're very strict about when you apply. If you apply one day too early, it's immediately rejected. And you have to apply right at a certain point that's, let's say, for different circumstances, like 6 months before your current one expires, but no earlier than that. And then you need to give enough time for it to be completed and all that. So, I mean, I guess it's a pretty tight window. And unless you've actually set up some calendar or really are staying on top of the ball, I mean, I guess I could see how, like, I have calendars set up on my phone to remind me, okay, today is the first day you can reapply for renewal. And then and then I have another calendar. If I don't apply for renewal by here, like, I'm screwed and stuff like that, because I know it's really serious. So in some sense, I mean, I have sympathy for this situation, but I guess from a bureaucratic's perspective, I mean, he did overstay a little bit. So they want to send him back, and then he should reapply from home. I do think that's also kind of a little silly, the whole thing, but But I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think it feels a bit like theater. Yeah, I mean, again, I try to see it from both perspectives. And if someone overstayed, they have, I mean, in some way broken the law.
Sure. Well,
I mean, I don't know if broken law is the correct term, but they've done something that they were not supposed to do. Having said that, I mean, this is not. This is probably shouldn't be extremely strict, because it's not like we're talking about someone who actually murdered someone, like broke the law like that.
Somebody is married to a Dane, you know? and he overstayed by a few weeks.
Yeah, someone who is planning to stay here. They're married. They're married. Yeah,
it's what it says here.
They are married. They're clearly gonna stay here.
Yeah,
maybe they. I don't know the reasons for them to overstay. I don't know if it was just negligence, if it was like forgetting.
Yeah.
But still, it doesn't seem to be that egregious.
No. And on top of that, I mean, he's going through the legal procedures anyways, right? Like, it's not like he just stayed here without telling anybody and is just hoping
to just trying to get around the system.
He's trying to go through the process, and okay, maybe he screwed up a little bit. Should there be some middle ground where they say, okay, you're already married to a Dane. We can consider that if you had applied from here anyway, even if it's a little late, we would or wouldn't have rejected you. And if they would have allowed him, then maybe they just don't go through the whole song and dance and make him go out and back in and stuff. But again, I get that there's some bureaucratic rules and some red tape here. I hope his situation works out better than maybe some of the other ones we're gonna look at.
There's a feeling just from the way that story was told. There is a feeling that the default is actually to just kind of kick people out instead of giving benefit of the doubt. You know,
right?
Because one of the things is, okay, maybe we can just give a little leeway by default. So if people fuck up, or if they fill the form incorrectly, or if they put their birth date incorrectly, like, I mean, you would assume, okay, that's just a typo, or that's just a small mistake. That doesn't mean that someone is trying to cheat the system.
Right. I mean, I know you have to draw the line somewhere, right? Because if you give a month,
but the line doesn't need to be very strict either. In a situation like this,
I'm in agreement. I think human beings should be able to make the correct judgment calls in some of these situations and say, this guy looks to be on the up and up, and everything seems to be proper. Yes, he's slightly late. Maybe we charge some other fee for that, or maybe there's, maybe it's going to take a little more time to process, but like maybe it's not worth sending him back. And then what I thought was really egregious is they suggested that his husband, who lives here and is a Dane and has never left the country and is in the government here, because you apply for family reunification together. The person that's like, I guess, the host or whatever, like when we applied, and I had to apply for the pay limit. Well, my spouse was considered tied to my application, right? So we had to apply basically together in a way. I applied with mine, and then she referenced my application in hers. So they also suggested that his husband, who's a Dane, go back to the U.S. with him while they apply for reunification.
Okay,
they had to be together or something.
That's weird.
And doesn't that seem stupid?
That seems really strange, yeah.
Okay. And to be fair, this is one side of this story. This was shared with us on Facebook. I'm sure, I don't think there's any reason for the story to be embellished or changed or anything like that. So it's probably straight up. But again, we don't know
all the details.
We don't know all the details. We haven't seen the application. We don't know every piece of the situation. But
and like I said, I mean, I don't want to sound all evil, but a point can be made that if someone overstayed or kept or broke the rules in some way,
then they should have to go through the process fresh or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know if "should" is the right word, but that there might be some consequences.
Sure.
Whether the consequences are too severe or not, that's up to debate. Do you know if these letters that are sent to them, if it's automated in any way, or if it's actually, if you have a human being looking at them and deciding, okay, this seems like a person that needs to be kicked out?
I have no idea. I know when we applied, and we got our response from a real person, and we had kind of asked a few points along the way how it was going, and I think I remember, we got response from somebody who said, yeah, we're working on it and stuff like that. So, I'm pretty sure real people look at these things and work on them.
But they probably have a checklist. Or,
they probably have a checklist.
If you hit any of these points, you're
right,
kind of fucked.
You're done and stuff like that. So anyways, that's Manny's story, and
I'm sorry to hear that, Manny.
Yeah, and we appreciate him and sharing that with us. So let's move on. We got another one. This is from Win and Ufa. I think, let's see. Hello, Americans in Denmark. I'm a Californian, married to a Dane with 2 kids. My family was the first family to get rejected for family reunification due to the new law. She got an April 3rd letter. This new law was announced June 28th. It's in Politik, and we'll take a look at that or talk about that maybe a little bit later. But I think basically this was the rule, or she talks about what was the law change. Previously, there was 2 rules at play. Rule number 1, Danes with citizenship of 26 or more years can bring a spouse under one set of requirements, like a simplified set of requirements. And rule 2, if you're Danish with citizenship of less than 26 years, then you'll need to prove that your aggregate ties together are higher to Denmark than any other country. So rule 1 was, that whole situation was struck down by the EU human rights courts. They said it was discriminatory against non-ethnic people because, of course, for you to meet 26 years of requirement here, you basically have to be an ethnic Dane born here for the most part, which I kind of agree with anyway. And so on June 28th, Denmark began to ignore that rule since it was struck down and retroactively apply that decision to everyone who had already submitted their family reunification application. So let's see, we have a full story of this below as well. So let's see, the headline here is, after 20 years in the United States, Uffe is not Danish enough to get his wife back home. The expat Dane was shocked by this decision. He's a 50-year-old astrophysicist. He's a Danish citizen and a native of Brundeslev. And after 20 years of a career in the United States, he moved back to Jylland with his American wife, Win. And the new life in Denmark ended quite soon, apparently, for Win. In all probability, she'll not be allowed to remain in the country. According to a letter from the Immigration Service, she should leave Denmark before the 10th of June. And they said that the attachment requirement wasn't met. Uffe said he's felt Danish in every second that he's been in the United States, and he has difficulty understanding why it's so hard for him to move his whole family a little bit closer to his roots. When he was in the U.S., he longed for Denmark. He missed it. He missed his sister and his parents, and his primary reason for coming is, or his wife's primary reason, Win, for coming, is that she loves him.
So is this only affecting her?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. Well, I mean, of course, to be fair, it affects their whole family.
Of course. It's,
but I mean, they're not kicking him out. They're just saying you can't bring your wife here. And yeah, this is a pretty sad story, actually.
Do they mention, they as in the government, do they mention what she needs to meet that she's not meeting?
When the family moved to Denmark, it wasn't affected by the requirement because Uffe satisfied the requirement to have been a Danish national for 26 years, which he had.
Yeah.
Then when they closed that, the Danish government, according to that EU ruling, closed that. Then they retroactively applied that decision to all the previous applications.
Yeah, that sounds a bit sketchy.
And they said this means that the couple in Jylland as a whole should have greater ties to Denmark than the U.S., but apparently they don't think they do.
And that's because of her. That's not him. Like, are they claiming that his ties to the U.S. are stronger because he actually lived there for 20 years?
Well, I don't see that anywhere here in the article. Okay. But I mean, let's think about it as if we're the people. I mean, how do you determine aggregate ties to a country?
Like, you can't. You can't. Like, I mean, well, there might be a couple of factors.
Okay, but look at me. Are my aggregate ties to the U.S. more than Denmark?
Probably.
Okay, and how do you judge that? By the amount of time I've lived in each?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly what
because
probably just the fact that you've lived there for longer right now. Yeah.
Okay, but I lived in the U.S. 30 years. I'm 33 now. So for me to live even in Denmark the same amount of time that I lived in the U.S., I'll have to be like 63 years old or something.
Yeah.
I mean, is the time stayed going to be the requirement? And then...
No, it's an extremely ambiguous way of deciding who is allowed to stay or not. I mean, you can always argue. I'm sure for almost every single person, you can always argue that that person might not be... the ties to Denmark might not be strong enough because you can just cherry pick. It's kind of what I was talking about before. You can always cherry pick.
I mean, imagine a Dane goes to, I don't know, vacation on Thailand or somewhere like that, and he meets somebody that he genuinely really loves and wants to marry her, and they get married. Maybe they live in Thailand for a few years, or maybe they get married and he says, move back with me, you can stay with me or whatever, and legitimately in love. And now this person is not going to be allowed, because do you think her ties to Denmark are going to be very strong?
Nope.
Even if he's been a Danish citizen and he's like 30 years old and never even left the country? So this not only affects immigrants, it actually affects Danes quite strongly, because, I mean, Denmark is a small country. You have 6 million people. There's only so many people that you might want to marry here, right? And maybe you don't find, I don't know, a Danish spouse that you love, or maybe you know what I mean? Like, you don't know how the heart works. Maybe you meet somewhere when you're like on a safari in Kenya or something. I don't know. And you just fall in love with that person. And that's your choice. That should be your human right to be with somebody that you love. And I think it's fucked up, this situation here.
Yeah. I think what surprised me the most is that okay, I always assumed that this law or these kind of rules were created in order to keep people who immigrate to Denmark and then a few years later or months or whatever try to bring their spouses.
Right.
And what surprises me is actually that it seems to be affecting
Danes,
ethnic Danes that have clearly lived most of their life or
all their life
or all their life in Denmark. I think that's really what surprised me the most about this. And I mean, I something in me, I guess something in everybody probably, feels that this seems kind of unfair. I mean, you can't really be part of a global world and the EU and stuff like that and want to get certain privileges, and then keep doing this to people who...
Yeah, and you call yourself, you're a first world country, you're an upholder of freedom or whatever, and you basically are making these decisions in people's lives. It's basically saying, look, effectively, this is basically saying to Danes, you have to marry a Dane or you have to leave. Like, you know what I mean? Because if you want to be with a person that's not a Dane, well, you're either going to live here or you're going to live there. And so this is saying, well, you can't bring them here.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, so I just think that's really...
You can say it for it. It's fucked up.
Yeah, I mean, it's fucked up. I was looking for a more eloquent word, but I didn't have one at hand. It's just because I'm actually like, I'm not feeling like completely just outraged, but like I'm not happy about this. And I love Denmark. It's not like I moved here because I didn't like it here. There's so many good things about it, and I think on a whole, it's still miles a bit ahead of the U.S., at least for me. Like, my personal feeling is I would rather live here than in the U.S. Each has their own set of problems and challenges and whatever. But certainly this makes me like lose a bit of respect for Denmark. Like, how the hell can you be so stupid and so short-sighted about things like this? Maybe if this was all bureaucratic red tape and then later said, you know what, we're going to have a special agent review your case. And yes, it seems like this is okay. All right. And you're allowed. But it seems to me like with the red tape, they're just going to say, nope, rules are rules. You're screwed. And I think that not having at least some human involvement or some human touch and saying, okay, is there room here for the rules to be bent slightly? And then I guess you're going to have the few people, wait, you bent the rules for them, so that's not fair. I need to have the rules bent for me. I don't know. There's not a perfect solution to this, but I don't think this is really that good.
It's a side effect of politicians or the people who voted for these parties of not wanting foreigners, and I guess it's affecting Danes as a side effect. Because to be fair, I find it hard to believe that this exact case, for example, is what
they want.
What people who voted for anti-immigration parties really think about they want to happen to the country.
No,
you know,
of course not. Because if you asked them, they'd say, "No, we don't want this to happen."
No, yeah,
they just say, we hate foreigners, but Danes should be able to do whatever they want, right?
I don't know if it's that black and white. But,
sure,
but
of course. I mean, it's a bit sarcastic, the remark. But
I guess originally they didn't think that these things would be affecting Danes in this way. But I mean, what do I know? I'm guessing.
Right. Well, in one sense, I think, of course, I'm outraged and not very happy that it's happening both to immigrants and to Danes. But in a way, I am happy that it's happening to Danes because I think if any group that it happens to is going to be the motivation for change. Right. We see time and time again, it seems like they really don't give too much of a damn about actual foreigners. So, I mean, at least if actual Danes are outraged about it, maybe there's a better chance that there can be some change. when people who are from here start being affected by it.
Yeah, it's really only when people get directly affected by these things that they will start doing
anything about it. Yeah. So, and this is not the only story like this. Remember, we searched a minute ago for a search term, the Danish wording for "I didn't feel welcome in my own country."
Yeah, we found
we found 4 articles of Danes that
just on the first page.
On the first page of Google that were basically all stories like this, which is pretty fucked
they
up.
were all the way back to September last year or something?
September. There was some from 2016. I thought there was ones even older than that.
Yeah, it might be.
But maybe not. So that's Win and Ufa's story, and I want to thank you guys for sharing that. And I hope that something gets resolved. I don't see any news here that you guys are appealing or anything like that, but I hope that everything works out for you regardless of what happens there. So now we have a story from Jenna. On Monday, I came home to a letter from the ministry in my mailbox stating that my application for family reunification had been denied on the clause that our ties to the USA are stronger than to Denmark. They're giving me until June 10th to leave the country. We're shocked by this decision, and we knew it could be a possibility due to the new changes with the immigration laws, okay? My husband of 7 years is Danish. He lived here as a child. He spent time in the States growing up. All of his family lives here in Denmark. He has a work contract as a sous chef. I guess that's here. Both of our children, 3 years and 6 years, have been granted Danish citizenship and are enrolled in Danish schools. We have all the collateral requirement and savings account for the family reunification requirement and have secured an apartment with up to a 15-year lease. Basically, they've done everything required, and they've still been denied. They filed an appeal to the decision in person, but they couldn't give an answer as to whether or not she would get permission to stay here before the June 10th deadline to leave the country. She was also told by the ministry that until I get a decision by the appeal board, she can't be granted a re-entry permit to even leave to find housing elsewhere. So if that's what it comes down to, so basically she's stuck. She can't leave to find housing elsewhere if they're going to kick her out, and she might not have a decision by the date that she needs to get expulsed or kicked out anyway. So they're basically going to leave it all the way down to the wire, and she's going to be screwed. If they kick her out, she has nowhere to go, because she didn't have any chance to find a place to go, or at least set up some alternative measure. And if she is going to stay here, she's basically going to be stressed out the whole time about what's going to happen, you know? And don't you think having 2 kids?
It's 2 kids, I think
3 and 6 years old,
yeah.
They're both Danish, and her husband is Danish. She's been married to him 7 years. You know?
It's ridiculous. I think so far this is like I really don't see anything wrong with this. According to her story, she meets all the requirements.
Uh-huh.
She has kids. She's been living here for 7 years. Is that one of, like, what's the new record?
No. She said that her husband of 7 years. I don't know how long she's been living here. Where does it say how long she's been living here?
Sorry. I misread those 7 years.
Okay, so let's think about the situation here, because there's a little bit left out that we have to piece together, or maybe we can talk about that we're not sure about. So her husband, they've been married for 7 years. He's Danish. He was born here and lived here as a child, but then spent time in the U.S. growing up. Who knows how long he stayed there, whatever. And then we don't know where they got married. Maybe they got married in the U.S. Maybe they got married here. We don't know those facts. And then their children, 3 and 6 years, we don't know where they were born. Maybe they were born in the U.S.
But they do have
but they have been granted Danish citizenship. So in that sense, we don't know some of those facts there. But they're saying that their greater aggregate ties are to the U.S. So he was born here. He lived there for a while. Presumably, this is just a presumption. We don't know this, but let's just play devil's advocate here, as if we're the people that like to use the red stamp and deny people, right? So we're gonna say, wow, he left here when he was young. He spent his whole time in the U.S. He married an American girl. They had kids together. Then he tried to apply and get his kid's citizenship, which we gave him. Now he wants to bring her there. We can say that they have greater ties to the U.S. because he lived there for a chunk of time. She lived there the entire life. The kids were born there. They were married there or whatever. Again, I don't know where the kids were born. I don't know where they were married. And I don't know if any of this is true. But let's assume that situation. I still think it's fucked up that they deny it.
It seems to me that what the government is actually saying, maybe not directly, is you even as a Dane, don't move anywhere else. Or if you move somewhere else, don't come back. Because if you come back, then maybe we will think that your ties to Denmark are not strong enough.
Right. And this was, only recently did they even allow citizens to get dual nationality, so that somebody could go somewhere and get a second nationality and then still be able, like, you used to have to renounce your Danish.
Yeah. Or if you want a Danish nationality, you need to renounce your own. Yeah. When I came here 9 years ago, it was like that.
Yeah, which leaves you in limbo. That leaves you as a stateless person.
Well, yeah, I don't know exactly how it goes,
it
but
does.
I'm sure it's not like an immediate thing. You lose one and you gain the other at the exact same second.
But you're left stateless for a period of time. And that's actually considered cruel and unusual punishment by the... I don't know if it's like I don't think it's the Geneva Convention, but like some of the human rights courts and stuff. Yeah. To leave a person stateless intentionally, like as a country, is considered an egregious violation of somebody's human rights because they have nowhere to go. They can't go anywhere.
Yeah, is that even allowed within the EU?
I don't know. I'm not,
you're not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer either.
But I do know that it's a human rights violation to leave somebody stateless.
Yeah.
And then basically what you're saying is before the dual nationalities thing, they were forcing you to become stateless of your own volition. And then what if they rejected your application or something, then you have nowhere to go.
Yeah.
I mean, that's always my biggest fear. That was the biggest reason I was so happy that they allowed dual nationality here, because I don't necessarily know if I'm going to drop my U.S. one if and when I ever get a Danish nationality, passport. But at the same time, I like knowing that I don't have to immediately renounce it first and then find out that either I'm accepted or rejected. Because there's no like going back to the U.S. Embassy and saying, sorry, guys, I made a mistake. Because they make you go back there like 2 or 3 different times. The first time you go to the U.S. Embassy, because I've kind of looked up the process, you have to announce your intention that you don't want to be a U.S. citizen anymore. And I think you basically have to confirm with them a bunch of things, like that you're not doing it for tax reasons and that you're not doing it and you're doing it under your own free will. You're not being coerced by a foreign government, and that it's not like a spur of the moment decision. And then they schedule a separate time for you that's like weeks or months later that you have to come back and verify again that you're still 100% sure that you want to give up your U.S. Passport. Because, I mean, I guess to be fair, it's one of the most powerful passports in the world. Yeah. And it's like, you have some extra... I guess credibility or some sway as an American. Like you can go so many places freely, and then if you're there and something goes wrong, like the U.S. government might swoop in there with a helicopter and pick you up out of there. Like they're not fucking around. So I was happy when there was like a dual nationality thing that at least if I wanted to, I wouldn't be stuck in limbo. But it seems a lot like it's almost this old attitude. Well, you want to leave here? You want to marry someone else? Okay, well, fuck you.
Let me just nitpick on something you mentioned for it, because it got me curious. You can't renounce your American citizenship purely on base of taxes?
As far as I know, yes.
So, wow.
So
you can't just say, well, I don't want to pay American taxes
while I don't even live there.
When I don't live there, so I want to renounce it. Like, no, you stay with us.
Yeah.
Wow, really? That's really
well. I mean, it's one of 2 countries in the world that taxes you even if you're not
living there or earning. Yeah,
the other one is Eritrea or something.
I mean,
they want that money, and you know that they basically have an agreement with every bank and financial institution in the world. It's hard for an American to get a bank account here. Like I had to show that I made like enough money to make it worth it, because the bank has to fill out a fuck ton of paperwork. They have to give all my data to the U.S. to show like all my accounts. And what's fucked up is that I still have to file all that information on my own independently and tell them all that shit too. And then if there's like any discrepancy or like I made the smallest error on a conversion of a currency or whatever, then they're like, oh, yep, you're a criminal. Like we're coming for you, like federal crime, whatever, like tax evasion. And I'm just a normal guy, and they make the taxes so fucking complicated now. It's ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. You get double taxed. And you have to report everything, even if you don't live there. And then you have to apply for exemptions. Like, for instance, I don't have healthcare insurance. Well, there's a fine for that. There's like a penalty for you if you don't have healthcare insurance in the U.S. So you have to apply for a special exemption that says that you didn't have to have it because you weren't there for more than like 300 days out of the year. And you have to prove that you didn't even fly over the U.S. at any point during that time.
Wow.
And like not even landing, just like flying in U.S. airspace is considered being in the U.S. It's fucking nuts, man.
Wow.
I mean, why do you think I left? I think all that bureaucratic red tape and that bullshit, it's just like, I want to live my life, I don't want to fill out paperwork. I don't want to feel like I'm a bad guy for just like accidentally forgetting about, that one time I was like connecting flights and they flew over like the Caribbean on a U.S. territory or I don't know. Holy shit, man. I don't want to go back.
And this is not the Trump law, right?
No, this is before, and Trump just made it worse, I think. I mean, not necessarily anything specific about that, but I mean, I can't say that Trump has made immigration and flying to the U.S. and all that stuff easier.
Yeah, I doubt it. Yeah.
So this is Jenna's story. I think even if we were to try to theory craft the worst possible situation for her, in other words, like what the right wingers their dream, they're like, oh yeah, she was in the U.S. and he lived in the U.S. and they married there and they had kids there, and then like if you try to craft the most negative scenario for her getting approved, it's still fucked up that they don't allow them to reunite here. At least, if anything, on behalf of the kids. The kids are Danish citizens.
Yeah.
I mean,
just leave the kids here and
what are you going to do?
So
just have the parents here only, kick the wife out, leave the kids motherless, or the other alternative is that they go somewhere else and then he tries his luck with becoming a U.S. citizen, or just maybe say fuck the whole system entirely and
move
just
somewhere to a country that actually accepts them.
Yeah.
Yeah. That just reminded me when I moved here. I mean, I'm a EU citizen,
right.
So I guess I never really had many hoops to jump through. But when I moved here, I remember people asking me, like after a few months of me being here, like friends of my ex-girlfriend, asking me how the whole process was of me becoming a resident.
Mm-hmm.
Because apparently, even back then, it was already a bit of an issue. I didn't have any issues at all. For me, everything was very smooth and easy because I'm a EU citizen, I guess. And because I got a job relatively easily, like a nice paying job and things like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, even back, like this is
2008, 2007.
It's from 2008, and I guess this has been a bit of an issue for a long time now.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think they started because back in the 60s, right? They had like an immigration boom. And then after that in the 70s, it was related to like foreign workers. And I forget the name they called them, but I've learned about it in my Danish classes and stuff like that. And then they went through a long, long period that's basically unabated of immigration tightening. And it's been like that since like, I guess after the 70s. They've just continued to tighten down on immigration.
So they got a bunch of workers here, and then when they're done using them, they just wanted them to leave, or what?
Just get out of here, basically. Yeah, they're like, oh, we got a shortage of workers, and then they needed them to come in, so people would come in and work here for like 2-3 years, make money, and then go back to their families and stuff like that. And then at some point, there was basically a labor, there was like job shortage. Like in other words, I guess they had too many people working, and like even Danes weren't able to get jobs. So they're like, okay, we got to tighten this shit up. We don't want foreigners in here anymore.
Do you know where those workers are from? Majority.
The majority of them, I think. I really don't want to misspeak, but I believe that they were from like a combination of like sort of Middle Eastern type, maybe not Middle Eastern completely, but like countries from like Eastern Europe and also like near Turkey, and like have some kind of like Middle Eastern influence of like Europe, you know what I mean?
Okay.
I guess because don't you consider Turkey? I mean, even though that's not like Middle East necessarily, it has a bit of influence there.
Oh, it's really borderline, and yeah, for some people, so I guess they might consider it Europe.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally see Turkey more as Middle East than Europe myself.
Okay. I kind of that's why I mentioned that. I kind of feel the same way as well, but I know it's also.
But yeah, Greece, Turkey is kind of like the border, I would say.
Anyways, I want to say that most of the workers at that point, I think, were from that area. I mean, it's complete like recollection of what I learned in Danish class months ago, and maybe I wouldn't pass the citizenship exam right now, but anyways, we did learn about that, and we know that there was some tightening after, and it just basically never let up. I guess there's various degrees of tightening. But
it's an ongoing process, 10-year ongoing process.
I mean, I will say as well that I feel like when I applied for the residence permit, I thought it also went relatively smoothly as well. Mm-hmm. Again, I mean, I'm coming from.
Well, you have a job immediately.
Yeah, I had a job even before I applied. Like I basically had a contract that said that they would pay before I even applied. So in that sense, I already met like the biggest requirement there was for the pay limit scheme. And on top of that, I think it helped that I was from a Western country. I think that makes things easier.
Certainly helps.
Easier even if it's not well documented, like even if it's not in the law, like if he's coming from a Western country, let him through. But I feel like I got I felt like the process was so smooth that basically there had to have been some influence there or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, even though there seems to be a lot of Americans affected by this, I am very confident that these laws were not passed to keep Americans out.
Not necessarily, but it's the fallout and the byproduct.
It's a side effect. Yeah.
The side effect there. So that was Jenna's story. So we've heard from Manny, Win, and Ufa, and Jenna. And there's also some new proposals. So I guess quickly we can just go over the new law for all expats. Permanent residence is changing to 8 years. It used to be 6 years previously, uninterrupted residence in Denmark. So you need to be uninterrupted here for 8 years. You also need to have 3.5 years of full-time work in the past 4 years. That's a change. That's up from 2.5 years work within the last 3 years. The ban periods for permanent residence due to criminal records have been increased drastically. So I guess, in other words, it used to be if you were convicted of any crime here and maybe even abroad. I don't know. I know they do check that, like major crimes abroad, and there's some speculation that they might even try to start checking misdemeanors and unpaid parking tickets as a way to exclude you. I don't know how true that is. But there was a ban period, like if you'd have committed a crime here or gotten fines over a certain amount of crowns, you were prohibited either entirely from getting permanent residence, or you would have to wait like 5 years until the last criminal thing.
Wow.
There are still the 4-year fast track requirements to qualify. There's some optional and mandatory requirements. You have to meet all of those. That's like some community service or leading some sort of thing for like nonprofit, where you're kind of integrated into Danish society. You need to make more than a certain amount of money, pay more than a certain amount of taxes. There's a few other things. They're not all listed here, but I know them. So the 4-year fast track requirements are still in place. But that's the changes for expats for permanent residence. 8 years now.
So that 4 years fast track, that has not changed.
That has not changed.
Okay.
But it's a pretty stiff set of requirements. Not I would say not most people don't meet the 4-year fast track requirements, would be my guess. There's also some new discussion now of some language requirements. In other words, I think what like the pay limit scheme right now is 408,800, and then you can get a temporary residence permit to work here for up to 4 years. That's if your contract is unlimited and doesn't have an end date. You can get a 4-year permit, which is what I have. And then if it is tied to a date, like let's say 2 years contract, well then that's all you can stay here is for that 2 years basically. What they're saying here is they want to change the agreement so that when somebody comes here on temporary work or under a work permit like mine and brings a spouse, that the spouse should pass a Danish test within 6 months.
Do you know if that is the same Danish test that like that I would have to pass right now?
Like pro dansk trait?
Yeah. Do you know if it's that or if it's an easier test, like for like a 6-month test?
I mean, it doesn't say here, but I mean, you know,
6 months seems pretty tight.
I mean, I think the 6-month test should basically be like, do you know how to say thanks? Do you know how to order a kebab with extra chili? Like that's about all I could probably expect somebody to learn is like how to say hi, bye, thanks, ask maybe where the toilet is, and how to order like some very basic food in 6 months. I'll be honest, even if you start going to the classes right away.
And you do it every day.
I mean, what about...
It's going to be difficult.
It's not the easiest language. I'm not saying it's unlearnable. I've been going for almost a year now, and I think actually I'm starting to understand quite a bit, and I can speak a little bit too. Like I'm not so basic as to only be able to do those things. Like I can actually have a bit of a conversation with somebody. There's just a lot of words I still don't know. But 6 months for a spouse and for somebody who is admittedly maybe even working here temporarily for 3 years or something, they're going to bring their spouse along, and then if their spouse doesn't learn Danish in 6 months, they're kicked out. And there's a quote here. Of course, it's originally in Danish, but we're going to use the old Google Translate as we have been for some things. Where's the kitchen quote? That's what we need.
So this is not is this a language test or is it a cultural test?
I think it's a language test.
Okay.
So, so here's a quote from Matthias Tesfaye, or I don't know how you pronounce this, but anyways, He's indicated that the integration minister, Ingrid Støjberg, have written that she would like to ask Danish requirements abroad of Danish spouses. Let's see.
I like how he says, we do it to ensure better integration of the spouses.
Mm-hmm.
So this is all to help the spouses.
Oh, right.
All these laws.
Absolutely. Yeah. Don't give them like a year or two to learn the language. Make them learn it in six months. I mean, that's good for their integration. So yeah, they want to apply the solution to have the same language requirements apply to spouses of foreign researchers and other sought-after workers who come here. And to say, oh no, it would be reasonable for the spouses of foreign workers to also learn Danish and not just walk around at home in the kitchen. It's a literal, this is a quote. I mean,
well,
maybe
I guess
it's in Danish. I mean, well, this part about the kitchen. Og ikke bare gå rundt derhjemme i køkkenet. Like literally, and not just walk around at home in the kitchen. Is that what they think spouses do all day when they have like a highly qualified guy like me come over here and work, and I brought my spouse? Do they think she just sits around here in the kitchen all day and like that's
you know, I think what I find the most amusing about this is actually the word the kitchen. Like they could easily have said just stand at home doing nothing, but no, just stay at home in the kitchen.
And it makes you wonder too, is it a sexist remark as well that they think all the highly qualified people that are going to come here are going to be men, and so therefore the like a patriarchal type quote, like, oh yeah, I mean, you know, this is okay, this is a bit
we can start nitpicking very
reading
much
into it, but still, I mean, the mention of the kitchen and this kind of.
I mean, to be fair, I'm gonna play a bit armchair psychologist or psychologist
Does
or
it say more
psychoanalyst
about
or something like this. But I think you can actually get a pretty good insight at what these people mean. Like not what they're saying, but what they mean.
What they ultimately mean.
Yeah, by the way you see this. So the way I read this is, there's gonna be someone from, let's just put it like this, the Middle East who's going to come here, and maybe they're going to get a job, and eventually they want to get their spouse here. Mm-hmm. And their spouse, since it's from a poor country, she was most certainly uneducated. Mm-hmm. So she's just going to stay in the kitchen all the time, and then having kids and breathing and adding all these extra charges to Danish society. That's how I read it. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. You be the judge.
Yeah. The three parties suggest, for instance, that an accompanying spouse, for example, an American engineer who only has to work in the country for 9 months, is thrown out of the country if the spouse doesn't learn Danish and pass a test within 6 months. And they said, we also have to think it was strange if an accompanying spouse of a Dane who had to work a year at Maersk in Beijing also had to pass a test in Chinese in half a year. Like that's like the other side of the coin. Yeah, you're a Dane. You bring you need to go work for Maersk in some remote location, like let's say Saudi Arabia on some oil project or whatever, and you have to learn like fucking, Arabic in 6 months.
Yeah, I wonder how they'd feel about that if
the shoe was on the other foot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and think about it too.
Is that an expression? Sorry to interrupt. Is that shoe is in another foot?
Yeah, if the shoe was on the other foot.
Okay.
Like, would you feel the same if the shoe was on the other foot? Yeah, that's
so basically, if whatever you
are proposing was actually put on you instead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Would you feel the same way if you were in their shoes?
I love it. Okay.
There's also, would you feel the same way if you were in their shoes? But I mean, it's kind of this similar thing. But yeah, like think about it. And also, not only the spouse would get kicked out, the other person that came here for work would get kicked out because their spouse didn't learn it. So you like create some family drama too. You come home from work, hey baby, what have you been doing all day? Sitting around in the kitchen? You need to learn Danish because if you don't, we're both out of here, I mean, Jesus Christ, this seems so stupid. So anyways, this is in Politik, and we made a note that we're going to start
we'll start sharing some of these links.
Linking the articles as well in the description.
I wonder, it just made me think that if actually somebody can learn a lot of the language by being in the kitchen, just listening to audiobooks or stuff like that.
Yeah, it's true. Maybe
so
that's
actually the kitchen is a good place to learn Danish. I mean, if you spend the whole day in the kitchen, you might as well entertain yourself by listening to something,
just watching TV and listening to audiobooks. Or something.
I mean, you probably don't need to be paying it. You're probably not going to need to be paying 100% attention to whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
So you heard it here first. Stay in the kitchen if you want to learn Danish.
Here's the last, hopefully, at least for now, last anti-immigration story we have to go over today. God, it's been a whole lot of them. This story actually was on Politik, and it was published the 4th of May. That's yesterday. And it was taken down. I actually pulled it up like an hour before we had the podcast, and I was looking at it. And then when you came over here, I tried to click the link again, and it was removed from Politiken.
Can you check it again just to make sure that it wasn't just a temporarily mishap?
I will open it again, but we're going to keep the other one open. Nope, it's gone.
It's gone.
It's gone for good.
It's interesting. I wonder why they removed it.
So this is written by Frank Wilsum, and I had luckily a saved copy of this tab open, and I've saved it as a PDF. Who knows why it was taken down? Maybe it's embarrassing to the Danish government. Maybe the facts in the article were wrong. Maybe Frank got fired. I don't know. But anyways, it was taken down, but we're still going to read from it. And we're also going to email Frank and try to figure out why it was taken down. And then we'll talk about it on the podcast next time if we get a response from him. Or maybe we can even have him on the podcast to talk about this thing. I would like that. Foreign Dane in Australia. I wasn't welcome in my own country just because I was married to a foreigner. Well, this sounds like every other story we've already seen. Danish Nicholas Peterson is married to a Vietnamese, Loc Nguyen. For 3 years, they tried to take root in Denmark, but uncertainty in the country's rules on family reunification eventually got the couple to just abandon the attempt. Now they live in Australia. So, I mean, I could go over this whole thing and all the details. Again. This is basically the exact same story. He's like, according to the organization Danes Worldwide, there's more than 200,000 Danes who work abroad. And he's one of the Danes who feel the pinch of the Aliens Act contentious ties that a married couple with a foreign partner from a country outside the EU must be attached to Denmark to settle here. So how are you going to be attached to Denmark? Like if you're outside the EU, there's no way for you to be attached. So basically it's just saying, hey, you can't marry anybody outside the EU unless you want to leave Denmark forever.
It's a bit of a catch-22, isn't it?
Yep.
Like you need to have some kind of attachment to the country that you have never lived but want to move on to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a chicken and the egg problem, right? Like if you don't have the egg, you can't have the chicken. If you don't have the chicken, you can't have the egg kind of thing. Anyways, apparently this requirement has been in operation since 2000. The attachment clause or whatever.
For non-EU.
Yep. So anyways, they tried for a few years, and here's his quote right here. We left after the election. We could see that it would be easier to be reunited somewhere else. I could see that the public opinion was not to give the doors open, or not to let the doors be open and let people come to Denmark. I could see Inger Støjberg's being the integration minister, and I understood the writing on the wall. And he just said, fuck this, I'm out. Here in Australia, you become part of the community immediately. One is not suspected of being welfare parasite.
Yeah.
So there you go. Nice skeptical view on all foreigners, right?
Wow.
And I talked with, we talked a little bit before this, and I also talked with my girlfriend about this. Basically, surely part of this is driven by fear, right? It's like, oh, we don't want to let terrorists in. That's one thing, right? And surely another part of it is we don't want welfare parasites in here, right? Surely there's some data somewhere that shows who the highest proponent of Danish or of welfare parasites, if you want to call it that, are. And I got to bet money that it's probably actually Danes, like ethnic Danes probably that contribute more to that. I don't know that that's true or not, but surely just based on the way that they already treat foreigners and try to limit as much as them coming in anyway, I don't think it's preposterous. And then even if there is a foreign group that is like a welfare parasite, surely it should be pretty easy to identify. Like, how about we select all people that have received more than 300,000 crowns in benefits over at least a continuous 5-year period? And where are they from? Are they an ethnic Dane? Or are they from, where's their country of origin, right? And then just pull up a chart and say, okay, looks like 82% of all the people that use the most benefits are from country X.
But still, is it that doesn't necessarily make it fair to judge all the people from country X?
No, but
they're all going to behave like this.
No, you don't, and you don't ban everybody from country X by doing that. But you could do some meaningful, smarter, limited regulation changes that doesn't affect fucking everybody like the way they do this, and say, look, we have data to back up that people from country X have a higher propensity to be a welfare parasite or whatever, and then say, look, all the requirements for you are exactly the same, but the money requirement, there's a money requirement that says basically you should have at least like 20,000 crowns or a certain amount of money to be able to take care of yourself or your spouse while you're here, so that if you're left jobless, you at least have enough money to pay for a roof over your head and you don't need to get welfare right away. So maybe you say, look, since you're from this country, you can come here with all the normal requirements, except you need 3 times the amount of money we normally require from people, because it's just how it is.
You know, the issue I have is, again, going back on the cherry picking data, And with the fact that a lot of people actually are much worse at statistics than they think they are, me included for sure. But it's just so easy to cherry pick data and make it seem like okay, if like the people from this country, they are the ones who they consumed more than 50% of the welfare.
Yeah, I mean, you can always design.
But then maybe they choose the exact date or the month, you know, and if you go just
the
1 month
date.
before, yeah, exactly.
I know. You can massage the data. You can come up with a report that tries to achieve what you want to achieve, and then say, oh wait, that actually shows that Danes are the highest welfare parasite. No, we don't want that. Let's
just change the
move
month.
the date and the criteria just a little bit so that it shows that people from, let's say, Afghanistan or whatever, you know, like whatever you want to do. That's true. You can sort of massage that data. But if that's an open and transparent process, in other words, all the data is put out forth in front of Parliament or the people or whatever, and the process and criteria, they have actual independent experts in like statistics and stuff come in, and multiple people are in agreement, and the process is transparent and said, look, we selected this date range, and this is why, and we selected these criteria, and this is why. And they have that data open, and it's not just some black box where they said, yeah, we looked at some data, and these are the ones.
Yeah, I think this actually it is a very good example of why data transparency is a very important thing. Because if you just see, even if you just see an expert, I mean, you never know if the expert has been bribed or something like that.
Or if he has his own ulterior motive.
Or if he has his agenda.
Or even if he doesn't have his own agenda, sometimes people are just really excited to be in TV and news articles.
Or they make mistakes.
Or they make mistakes. But like sometimes people just want to be on TV, and they feel like some reporters ask them, hey, you know, whatever, and they already feel like
I'm going to have a bigger chance of being on TV.
Well, I'm going to have a bigger chance on being on TV if I have this viewpoint. Or they might say, wow, it feels to me like the reporters really want to represent this position, so I'm going to do that. And maybe it's not even like intentionally malicious. It's just they kind of go along with the process. So yeah, I think data transparency is really good. But I don't know. I don't have a solution for this. I'm just kind of kicking shit around.
No, I mean, I don't think we need to have a solution to show or to bring out the idea that this is not working or this is not good or this is not right or this is not being done correctly.
Don't you think foreigners are a good thing for Denmark generally?
Well, I think foreigners are a good thing for Denmark. Same way I think Danes are a good thing for Denmark. I just think people are a good thing.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, I didn't mean to say just foreigners, and of course, like, oh yeah, Danes are bad, foreigners are good. But what I mean is like a country that's like upholds values of freedom and is like a first world country and like human rights champion and stuff like that. You want to continue to be that powerhouse in human rights and have people. You want people to want to come to your country. People say like that.
It's a sign of a good country if people want to come to it, for sure. I was personally never a big proponent of diversity just for the sake of diversity.
No, not to meet some quota.
So, yeah, exactly. No. So it's like every year we should bring these amount of people from a different country that we can be more diverse. I think that's ridiculous.
That is ridiculous.
The same way that I think it's ridiculous to kick people out just to be less diverse. Which, again, going back to at least the idea that I have that's what they're doing. Or that's what they're trying to make.
And you can see the writing on the wall. I mean, the whole country seems to be, or the whole world seems to be doing that. Look at France right now.
Yeah, France, the States, even the Netherlands. I mean, they just had. I mean, they didn't.
And Trump,
the extreme right-wing party didn't win, but at least there were talks about it.
Yeah,
it's just really happening.
And right now
over.
in France, Macron or whatever, like this.
Yeah, Le Pen.
He's quote ahead in the polls, right? And then there's some people theorizing it's going to be just like the Donald Trump thing, that basically he's going to be the Hillary and then Le Pen will get elected.
I think it's a very different situation though. Yeah. And I'm not really much into politics.
I'm not
but
either.
I think it's a very different situation. But yeah, I mean, it's a sign that there's definitely a current that against
outsiders in every country. It seems.
Yeah, in modern times, let's say. Maybe, I mean, to be fair, this is probably more of a human nature kind of thing, because this has been really happening all over, right? I mean, back in the day in the States, when with the Irish immigration and the Germans and the Italians, I mean, the Irish and the Italians, they were not really, the same thing was...
They were hated.
Yeah, exactly.
And look how good it actually worked out for the U.S. like that they were there. Like think about how much culture was enriched and how good it was for the country, even given the fact that they were like hated the whole time. I bet if people could go back and change the way they viewed them, like in hindsight, you know what I mean, they would.
I do believe that people back then, they saw, and I mean, Irish and Italians, they are, I don't think it's even arguably, I mean, they are white and Caucasian and all the things that nowadays it's what they're the desirable ones, so to say.
Yeah.
You know, they are not nowadays it's terrorists mostly. It's the big talk,
the big fear.
Yeah, the big fear.
And you know, I think that also part of the whole discussion, right, is that you can't judge an entire group of people by what just a few people do. So in other words, like when we had the 9/11 thing, of course, a very few amount of people caused that or perpetrated that attack, and they happened to be, you know, from Saudi Arabia or whatever it was at the time. You can't judge everybody in just an entire bucket and say everybody's a terrorist. Part of what freedom is about is like allowing people enough room to break the rules, and those that do break the rules, they get punished, but you don't change the law for everybody. Like it was already illegal what they did. So in that sense, if there's a few people coming over from somewhere that's like abusing welfare or whatever, you're scared of them because the color of their skin and you think they're going to have a bomb at Norport Station or something, like you shouldn't just fucking ruin it for everybody. You know what I mean? Just because of the actions of a few.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of being a free society. That's the consequence of having freedom, is that if people want to do a really bad thing, they're going to do a really bad thing. And there's not anything you can do to change that. Even with all these laws and all this bullshit and trying to prevent people, if somebody wants to do something bad here, they will do something bad. And that's just the reality, human nature. I mean, you saw it with the terrorist attacks with the trucks and stuff like that. I mean, even if you don't have a gun, even if you don't have a knife, it's something as mundane as a fucking truck. Like, if you want to achieve a bad thing, you're going to be able to do it if you put your mind to it. And that's just human. Yeah, sadly, that's just human ingenuity.
It's easy to break the law. Yeah. It's easy to break the law.
So I don't know. This is wow. This became like the politics podcast for the past hour or whatever it's been. If you have more stories of integration troubles or successes, I'd love to hear a success story. I think mine has been pretty good so far, although I am actually really annoyed about how the goalposts keep changing, how they make it harder and harder every single time. It's just like they have a carrot in front of my face and they just keep moving it as I chase it. You know what I mean? So that's annoying. I also find it a little bit maybe shameful or embarrassing for Danes that that this kind of action has happened. Like this comment about the kitchen, and I mean this thing about having to take a Danish test in 6 months, and I mean Danes not even being allowed to marry who they want to and bring them back home. I think Danes should be outraged just as much as people trying to live here and that do live here and are trying to integrate into society, because I'm going through all the steps to integrate, you know? Like pretty much my favorite sandwich is already a flæskesteg anyway, and I'm American. That's saying a lot, you know? To switch from a burger to a flæskesteg sandwich.
That's no easy.
That's no easy task. So anyways, if you have stories, you should definitely email them to us, unfilteredcph@gmail.com. We're also on Facebook now.
We're on Facebook.
Unfiltered Copenhagen. But shouldn't we go over some more lighthearted news now that we've really got those grumbles off our chest? Wow, I just need to clear the throat after that one. So we did have some articles. Weather's been shit, by the way.
Today.
Before, it has been sunny. It's still kind of cold and windy.
It's been kind of okay. It's just been blæser, windy. Yeah, it's been windy.
Yeah, it's not t-shirt weather still.
And we were just in Greece last week, like Athens. The second half of last week. So coming from Greece, where we're just walking around with the t-shirts.
Yeah.
Even, I mean, at night maybe you get a bit of you get a jacket or just something else to cover your
like a light
your
hoodie
arms.
or like a windbreaker or something.
But coming from there to here, where I mean, there's still some sun out here.
It was 25 degrees there, and it was sunny and clear, and there was a gentle breeze that just kept you slightly cooled off in the day so you didn't get too hot and start sweating. Like, it was the fucking perfect temperature, man. Honestly. And then you come back here, and it's like, you know, the shit weather is right away. As soon as you get off the plane, oh, yeah, sure, dark and murky and windy. Fuck that.
Yeah, we couldn't have a podcast without mentioning the weather.
No, that's true. We actually argued about whether we should go over the weather forecast for the next few days. I guess we'll hold off on that. If you want to hear the weather forecast, a brief one, let us know.
Yeah.
On Facebook. So this article is kind of cool. Artist hides giants in the wilds of Copenhagen, luring seekers into nature. This is done by a Danish artist, Thomas Dambo, and he makes these giant scrap material like trolls.
Is that wood, or is that just really all kinds of scrap material?
I think this is wood and other scrap material, but I think it's mostly wood. And he makes these big like trolls or forgotten giant trolls.
How tall are they? If you go back to the picture, at least we can estimate. So that's a kid. He must be what, 1 meter, 120?
So it's at least 5 meters tall, right? 5 or
maybe 4 or 5. Yeah, and I mean that's just one of the giants. There might be more giants that are taller.
And it looks so cool. He's integrated it with the wildlife, like it's holding on to the tree here.
It looks like those trolls, like with the collar hair. Like when I was a kid, there used to be these characters. They were just called trolls. I guess trolls nowadays, in the internet age, I mean something different. But there were these trolls with colored hair that supposedly, if you touched it, I think it would give you good luck.
Mm-hmm. I remember what you're talking about. Yeah, if you want to check these out, we're going to try starting to post links to all the articles we talk about. But this is thomasdambo.com. You can just probably search Thomas Dambo and Forgotten Giants or Giants.
But they're mostly around, what area is that?
Høje-Taastrup, Albertslund.
There's one on Frederiksberg Zoo.
Yeah.
And then everything else is kind of west from that. So around the Brøndby and Ishøj, Høje-Taastrup, Albertslund, Wellensbeek. Yeah,
so west,
around that area.
Basically west of the city center.
To be fair, the zoo is really the only area around there that I sometimes.
But this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's only 6 of them. This zoo is just a reference.
It's just a reference point.
So there's not one at the zoo.
There's not one at the zoo. So Brøndby Øster is the closest one to central Copenhagen.
Yeah. And one of these, I read in the article about this one, Sleeping Lewis. This is a giant whose mouth is open and he's laying on his side.
So you can go inside.
He actually built this because he noticed, he was already going to build it, right? But he noticed there was like some homeless people in the area. So he decided, why not make the mouth open where you can go inside of it? So if like homeless people need a place to sleep or something, they could use it.
You think there's syringes there by now?
Maybe not. I don't know. Which one? Where is this one? This one is by...
I'm not implying that all homeless people are drug addicts.
No, I wasn't. I didn't.
No,
it's just a funny joke.
For the audience.
2 out of 10.
They don't know me for it.
I know. I don't know. Maybe there is, maybe there's not. But anyways, I thought that was kind of cool that he took that into account. So Thomas Dambo, Forgotten Giants. It's probably cool. It's probably it's like an open air treasure hunt kind of thing. It's probably really good if you have kids. You can like go around and explore nature and, hey, let's look at this cool thing.
I guess it's cool with kids if you take kids to like 1 or 2 of these because they're somewhat close. But if you have kids, you probably don't want to go to all of them. However, even if you're an adult and you like to hike or just to kind of walk around, you can probably do all these 6 within a day. You're going to be tired by the end of the day, I guess. Yeah. But at least it's all flat.
But I mean, if
you're
you
not
have
going
kids,
up and down.
You could also take them to 1 or 2 every weekend, or a little, like a few every now and then. Just, hey, do you want to go see another troll or whatever? Yeah. And your kids are probably
it's kind of like geocaching.
Yeah, I bet.
Geocaching, and you're just trying to find a big.
And on top of that, these things look pretty fucking cool.
Oh, they're really cool.
He's done a really good job with the look of them and all that. So check those out for sure. What else do we got?
Oh, what's the second one? There's actually something about banning foreign religious leaders for hate speech or hate preachers.
Denmark gives 2-year ban to 6 foreign religious hate preachers.
One of the interesting things there is that there's actually one American...
The list includes 5 Islamic preachers and U.S. pastor Terry Jones.
Yeah. Do you know Terry Jones?
Yeah, I know the name. I forget what he's such a... I know the name, and I remember he was kind of a pile of shit when I last looked him up. But let's see what Terry Jones is all about. There's 5 Islamic preachers who are nationals of Canada, Saudi Arabia, Syria, the United States, and the U.S. evangelical pastor Terry Jones, who burned copies of the Quran in 2011. Inger Støjberg is very pleased that it's now clear to everyone that these people are not welcome in Denmark. She's very pleased when anybody's not allowed in Denmark, it seems. So, I mean, just add some more to the list. Although to be fair, these probably should be precluded. But maybe this is more what she should be doing instead of making it hard for Danes to marry people.
It certainly looks a bit more acceptable, for lack of a better word. You know, like okay, if you're gonna ban people from the country,
at least she has a reason.
At least there's strong reasons.
Yeah.
Or seemingly strong reasons. I don't know exactly what the reasons are. I'm just taking their word that these are all hate preachers.
The list of banned preachers was spurred by a February 2016 hidden camera documentary that captured a radical imam in a Danish mosque preaching that adulterers should be stoned. The documentary's broadcast led to a debate in Danish society about how to stop the construction of parallel societies and prevent religious fanaticism.
Wow. That would be a lot of fucking people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know.
All right, I guess there's not really that much information about.
Well, it says they're not. It says Denmark is not the first European nation to have such legislation. The UK can block individuals with criminal convictions or those whose presence is not conducive to the public good from entering the country, and the Danish ban is just to be implemented by the country's immigration service. So, whatever. She banned some people.
So do you think they banned the other guy because the burning of the Quran was the main thing, or I really don't know what kind of stuff he says or he preaches.
Yeah, we can look him up. But,
so maybe the burning of the Quran is actually one of the lightest things that he does or talks about or whatever. I don't know.
Well, Terry Jones.
Because to be fair, I don't think if I burned a Bible that I would be put in some kind of hate speech.
This should give you some context, right? He's a pastor of Dove World Outreach Center, a small non-denominational Christian church located in Florida. He's the president of a political group, Stand Up America Now. He first gained national and international attention in 2010 for his plan to burn Qurans, the scripture of the Islamic religion, on the 9th anniversary of the September 11th attacks. He was a self-declared independent U.S. presidential candidate in the 2012 race and the 2016 race. I don't think he got too many votes. In 2011, he was listed by the Southern Poverty Law Center as one of the 10 people in the U.S. Anti-Muslim inner circle. So he said, quote, Islam is the devil. Oh, he had a book titled Islam is the Devil. Should give you an idea about this guy. Just pretty much a hate preacher, but maybe not what you were expecting, right? Because, I guess this other thing was they were trying to prevent some of these others are kind of adulterers should be stoned, they're Islamic preachers.
One thing is okay, let's burn this book. This is going to piss a lot of people off, but I'm still just burning a book. Another thing is someone saying, let's stone these people because they slept with someone else while they were married.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's probably fair enough that they ban him. I don't think he's the kind of guy that's going to be coming to Denmark anyway.
Me neither, but I don't know.
Okay. That's enough about hate preachers, isn't it?
about banning people or keeping people away from the country.
How about this one? Better use of the city space. Flexible parking to give more street space to Copenhagen restaurants and cafes.
So they're going to enlarge the streets. Or no, they're going to...
the sidewalk maybe or something? Let's see. Flexible parking gives more street space to these restaurants and cafes. In another attempt to help, I guess, restaurants, cafes, and food trucks continue to use parking spaces for outdoor seating during the day. Okay.
So what? So they're going to turn the parking spaces into non-parking spaces?
Right. I think it says when Copenhageners use their car on the way to work in the morning, a lot of parking spaces are unused until they come back again in late afternoon. Mm-hmm. It's a waste of space, and that space will be allowed to be used by cafes and food trucks for outdoor seating and outdoor service from the period from 9 o'clock until 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I guess.
So what exactly are they doing? Are they just saying, well, from 5 p.m., these spaces can be used by people or restaurants or shops?
First off, it's saying it's only going to be in areas that have empty parking spaces. The Copenhagen Engineering and Environmental Now wants to do an experiment to make it possible to use the space. Cafes, restaurants, and food trucks will be able to use the empty spaces for outdoor service during the period from 9 to 5. And it will only be allowed. There was a previous attempt in Norbro, which according to the administration was a great success. And they're going to extend it to the entire city. But wait, there's a caveat. At least the parts of town where there's no shortage of parking spaces in the daytime. So it's obvious that cafes and restaurants in Vesterbro, Nordbro, Oosterbro, and Amabro are participating in the trial. I guess there's plenty of parking there during the day already. So there's only 25 sites which will initially be allowed to take the parking places.
Okay, that sounds interesting. I'm always up for stuff that facilitates
a nicer experience.
Living like city life.
Yeah, like living and
walking
eating
around,
and hanging out in the city.
Yeah, hanging out at cafes or just enjoying the city.
I agree. I think the street life is pretty nice here. I will admit I was a little bit jealous about Greece, how people just kind of hanging out all over the city in the streets and stuff, like just whatever, find some stairs, hanging out there, like it felt in a way like there was more enjoyment of whatever space they had available. Even though, okay, let's make the caveat. The space itself looks like it's riot-proof everywhere. Like it's like it doesn't look very inviting. It looks, in fact, a bit like a post-apocalyptic area in some areas to me, because I'm not used to that kind of riot-proof, riot police on the streets keeping the peace. Everything is like bunkered down behind a metal sheet of whatever. I mean, it looked like there had been a war there almost.
Well, they're going through some turmoil, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we saw when we were there was people marching in the street looking like they were going to go fuck something up. And I mean, I didn't feel unsafe. Like I think
I felt very safe.
I think you and I both said we didn't feel unsafe. It certainly feels like more lively there, though. Like things.
There's something going on, for sure.
Like things could reach a boiling point and things could get dangerous. Like actually, the notice for United States citizens abroad in Athens is not to be anywhere outside on November 17th. Like just disappear, because it's going to be bad news bears.
I liked it so much more than I thought I would.
I
really
thought
loved
it was
Athens.
Great. I thought, and the food was amazing.
There's good food. There's just something in the air. I really don't know how to explain it, but there's something going on in that city. Like it's changing. It felt to me kind of like New York in the 80s or even Germany after the Berlin Wall collapsed. It's like, okay, this is a time of change. And I don't know how long that time of change will be. I don't know if it's going to be 2 years, if it's going to be 10 years. But this is a time of, let's say, to put it positively, time of opportunity in Athens. Right. I really felt it.
Well, I mean, there's certainly a feel of some destitution there, too.
For sure, yeah.
Like, I mean, you can tell the financial situation there is not very good. Somebody definitely fucked over somebody or multiple people. I mean, there was something that went down there. I don't know too much about the history of that, other than I've seen reports that some people said that like Goldman Sachs went in there and kind of overstated their financial position to get them into the EU, and then they kind of couldn't make good on those promises, and I don't know. I guess it all kind of collapsed.
I think it's a lot of corruption.
Yeah,
I think it's a lot of corruption on the high level, from high level people.
Yeah, of course. Filling their own pockets at the expense of the entire country.
Yeah.
That's fucked up. I would be pissed.
There is the same thing happens in Portugal to some extent. I don't think it's as drastic and as bad, but I think it's not disingenuous to blame corruption.
No, I don't think so.
Politicians' corruption in Portugal as the cause of most of the financial problems that have happened since 2008.
Here's an article.
That's an interesting article.
From Vice. This is on munchies.vice.com. It says tipping is actually a thing here in Denmark.
Which surprised me a little bit.
Because it's not really a thing, is it?
No, it's to be fair, I don't think it is.
Maybe she just really wants to tip.
I think, well, partially maybe that's true. I think they're also kind of running out of things to write about, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I see tip jars everywhere, but
don't see too much money in them.
The thing is, I understand I partly understand the tipping, the reason for tipping in the States. So the wages are all really low, especially for waiters and stuff like that. So they're gonna have a really shitty life unless they get tips from customers. I don't agree with it, but fine. There's a logical reason behind it.
Sure.
I really don't think here that is that the situation is the same. Now that doesn't mean that I don't think people should ask for it, like that there's anything wrong with having a tip jar.
No.
I just don't think that it's fair to expect people to tip. maybe I'm cheap. Well, I am cheap, but still, I see a very big difference between being expected to tip here or in the States.
Yeah, I mean, I'm torn on this one because as an American, I basically almost feel the need to tip for everything. But since I've been here,
I'm the opposite.
But since I've been here, I've learned that, hey, everybody here gets paid pretty well and they don't need a tip to survive. So in that sense, like I was telling you earlier, like if I go out and I basically eat at a place like a restaurant, an actual sit down restaurant where I have a server that's good and the meal is more than, let's say, 700 crowns, as long as the server was pretty decent and I didn't feel like he just fucked everything up. Like I'm not a very picky guy when it comes to service as far as like withholding a tip. I'm not that guy who's not like, even if I get shitty service in the US, I would still tip you like $5 on a $25 thing, which is, I think, pretty good. But here, if it's over 700 crowns, I'll usually tip about maybe 50 to 70 crowns at a sit down restaurant or something like that. And that's about it. I mean, I don't tip any other situation. I don't think it's really necessary. I think here they already get paid well enough. And while I agree that, I mean, the server is a big part of your experience when you sit down at the restaurant, it's like just as important as the chef in that sense, maybe even more so because that's the person you deal with.
Yeah, it can ruin your experience.
I would also argue that I think service level in general here in Denmark is far lower than it is in the US. So
it's terrible.
In that sense,
terrible.
I know they already get paid well. And because maybe there's no incentive for them to try harder because most people don't actually tip anyway, then maybe they just kind of go through the motions and do as little as possible to get the job done anyway, which it kind of feels like. It's just a practical sense. They bring you your food and that's it.
I think you're correct for it. I feel exactly the same way.
At the same time, the US model can sometimes be like oppressive. Like they constantly come by your table. Oh, is everything okay? Like your mouth is stuffed with an entire burger. You couldn't possibly respond to them. And they come by every 2.5 minutes. Oh, hey, darling, is everything tasting all right for you today? And you just kind of nod your head and, like, I mean, come on, there's some balance there. Like, don't come bother me all the time. But then sometimes when you're here, you're trying to get the check and it's like a 35-minute ordeal. I mean, often I want to have the check even before I leave, just so I know that there's no additional responsibility. Like we've already squared up what I owed you. You brought me my food and drinks. I gave you your money. I'm going to sit here and hang out for a little bit and chat. But when I'm ready to stand up and leave, I don't want to have to be hunting you down and asking you for a check or anything. I want to just be able to go.
Okay, I have something to say about that because I've had an experience kind of like that where I was sitting with some friends. We had our dinner. We finished. Then we're just hanging out there. And eventually they brought the check without us asking for it.
To kind of get you out of there.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, if they do that, what I felt was, okay, they just want me out of here.
Right.
So, I don't know if I'm like, okay, you should, that's the right thing to do.
Maybe they want you out of there, maybe they don't. Of course, I think it's always a good idea, especially if you go to a restaurant near their closing time. Like, let's say they normally close the kitchen at 11 o'clock and you go there at 9:30. You order your food and it comes out at 10 o'clock, like once you're basically ordering dessert, when they come around and ask you if you want to order dessert, I just say, hey, yeah, I want this for dessert. And by the way, when you're bringing it, can you bring the check so I can go ahead and take care of that? That way, they don't have to worry about it. They can go ahead and close out their register and know that they're not going to, they'll let you sit there for a little while longer, and they're going to have to clear out the table later. But I mean, I just try to get it out of the way. So I think sometimes when it's near the end of the night, they're more often to bring you the check quickly.
That was not the case.
It wasn't?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I actually remember that at some point after we paid and everything, and we were there at the table.
Yeah.
They just came with a rag and started cleaning up the table.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they wanted
us out of there.
Yeah.
For sure.
Were you guys being loud or obnoxious?
No, not at all.
How many of there were you? Was it a big top?
5 or 6. We're like 2, 4, 5 or 6. Yeah.
Yeah, 5 or 6 is a big top, basically. I mean, it's not a huge table, but still,
It's
that's
burger place.
6 other people they could have eating a burger right there.
It's a burger place.
Well, I mean, what do you expect? You eat your burger and get out of there.
I paid to be there.
It's the American model. It's like turn and burn. That's what they call it.
Turn and burn.
Yeah, because the servers make money on tips. So what they want to do is get you in, get you eating, and get you out of there as quick as possible so they can have the high turnover and more tips. Yeah, turn and burn. It's there's a bunch of restaurants in the U.S. that are considered turn and burn joints. Not really known for their great service. Usually the only reason people eat there is because the food is pretty good.
Just to kind of close on the tipping thing, I'm European. I'm not used to tipping. I'm definitely not used to tipping by default. I've always kind of learned that tipping is not is not like something mandatory, but the way I've seen my parents do it, it's more like, okay, if you get a bill and you have to pay this and some cents, and you kind of sometimes round it to make it, one, to make it easier for everybody, and two, to actually show some appreciation.
Yeah.
The issue that I have against tipping is when it's mandatory.
Yeah, sure. When it's included automatically as part of the bill, they do that in some places in the U.S.
Or even if it's not included automatically, it's like sometimes if you take a cab in the States and even if you tip them, if you don't tip them the right amount, they will say, like, make some snickering comments back at you, you know? It has happened.
Well, were you in New York?
No, I think this was in Vegas.
Oh.
And I'm not sure it happened to me directly, but I remember some of my friends from Europe that had stories like that. I can't remember if they tipped too low or if they didn't tip at all.
I would argue
it was
that
a foresight.
I would argue that the world, like around the entire world, basically every cab driver seems to be an asshole. That's my experience. The cab drivers here, they're kind of aloof and annoyed that you even got in their cab and that you didn't decide to take a cab all the way to fucking Aarhus. You know, they're like, oh, I got to take you only 2.5 kilometers. Fuck you is like the attitude they give me.
Really?
They don't talk. Yeah, when you take it, well, before when Uber was still a thing in Denmark, when you took it, the drivers were always really pleasant. They talked to you. I mean, I guess you're going to rate them, so they try to. But I always felt like I had a good experience. I mean, I don't have to talk to the driver and like chat him up, but those guys would genuinely like seem like they were having a good time doing what they were doing, and they were happy. Whenever I get in a cab, like a normal cab, like 4x48 or Taxi or whatever these companies are, it just seems like the guy like hates his job, hates his life, and doesn't want you to be there either.
Well, but Danes are a bit more reserved in general, or a lot, I don't know, but especially compared to Americans. So
fair enough.
I don't see the not
fair
talking
enough.
thing.
But why were these other Danes that were driving for Uber pretty cool and chill and talking?
I'm not sure I ever took an Uber with a Danish driver, to be honest.
Really? I did.
I might have. I just can't remember.
Define Dane.
Oh, okay. Well, fair. No.
Okay. How do you know he wasn't Danish? Why wasn't he Danish?
Well, I think they spoke English to me by default.
Don't Danes speak English?
Well, by default. Maybe they just assumed. Oh, come on, for this is.
I'm trying to get you caught up in your own words.
You are, and I guess in a way you made me stumble a little bit. But no, I'm pretty sure that most, if not all, of the Uber rides that I took were not from Danes.
Not ethnic Danes.
Or even non-ethnic Danish citizens.
Just like somebody
with
here.
holders of a Danish passport.
Yeah. Okay.
I asked them to.
We got some news about Sweden, and in that news, first off, you can take your Reisecord all the way to Malmö.
That's awesome.
Should you actually choose to go to Malmö? I've been there twice. It's really boring, but
I mean, I think it's it's nice just for a change of pace, because it's actually not that far. It takes like what, 45 minutes to get there?
Yeah, 30 minutes on the train from here.
Well, from
here.
Central Station.
No, from here it's 30 minutes.
Okay, well,
from Central it's going to be 37.
Yeah, from Central it's going to be 30-40 minutes. So if you come from just a bit further out, it's going to take you less than an hour probably. Well, depending where you come from.
I mean, fair enough. It's a little bit different. It feels like a miniature kind of version of Copenhagen with people who talk a bit like this, and it's nice enough. I mean, I've had a decent enough time each time I've gone there. I feel like it is quite boring there. At least the times I went, it just seemed dead. Like it didn't
when did you go?
I went around Christmas. Oh, the time I went around Christmas with my dad, because we went to do some shopping over there for some things we couldn't get here. I felt it was a little more lively. The time before, we had just gone on some random weekend in the summer, like on a Saturday or a Sunday or something. And
the summer, and it was dead?
Yeah, it felt like it was dead, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You sure you went to places that
the same
people
place
should be
the
at?
shopping street and all that shit. I mean, yes, there were some people around. It just felt so, like, it didn't feel like Greece, I'll tell you that. There was no liveliness to the city.
Well, to be fair, you're comparing a capital of a country of I don't know how many people to Malmö.
I know.
Which,
anyways, all I'm saying, you can take the Reisecord to Malmö now, and the Öresund border control ID checks have been canceled. You know why?
Why?
Because Inge Støjberg has managed to kick all the foreigners out of Denmark, so none of them could possibly get to Sweden. No, actually, I don't know. That's if you couldn't tell, that's a bit of a joke. I don't know. I guess they're just tired of fucking doing it.
I
It cost a lot of money, probably. Also, I think there was some lawsuits by people not only that had to live in one place and work in the other, but also DSB raised a suit against the government for all the lost amount of time and revenue because the trains weren't able to run on the normal schedule. There was a bunch of shit about it. And to be honest, how effective was it really? I don't know. But at this point, I guess it's done.
Well, I guess they started it when there was
We
all
had
those
all those refugees in
coming.
the central station, and they were trying to cross the tracks and get over to Sweden.
Which I don't think the situation is like that anymore right now.
It's not. No, they put up a fence.
They put a fence?
Yeah,
Where?
they built a wall.
Where?
In the airport.
They have? Okay.
Yeah, they built
I wasn't aware of that.
You don't know? Like,
No.
In the underground, in the train station, right before you get on the terminal, like the Øresundstog,
Yeah?
like the actual platform, there's a metal fence, like a wall between the two tracks. Like if you were to try to jump down onto the tracks and then jump up over on the other side,
Okay.
you can't do that anymore. They
I
they literally, I mean, this was before Trump was even president. I mean, they built a wall.
I've probably seen it. I guess I haven't noticed it.
Yeah, it's just like a metal fence.
Because I've been there.
They put it up there to prevent people from jumping across to the other side of the tracks. So what would happen is people, let's see, I'm trying to think of the exact reasoning why. Because people would come on the train from Central, and then they would stop the train there to do the ID checks, and then the train would again leave. So what would happen is people would actually go on the other side of the tracks, and to try to avoid the border control thing where they check the passports, they would just jump over and like hop in the line or something or get on the train. I'm pretty sure that's the reason.
The border control was down where you take the train. Like when you go down that escalator.
Yeah, but it's not like it's a military grade installation.
No,
like
sure,
if you
not.
just pop into line, like after they've already checked the stuff, I guess you could. Anyway,
But they could see. I mean, if someone is running across, they probably
I
notice
guess.
it.
I mean, at that time, I don't know if they had all that in place, but at some point they put a wall in there, and it was to prevent people from jumping over.
So Inge Støjberg 1, Trump 0.
Yeah, she built a wall.
Wow,
Trump didn't.
impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Was it who built the wall?
Probably some contractors.
Some foreigners.
Yeah, probably some. Wouldn't that be like the ultimate? Oh yeah, you know what? I don't know.
Probably. I don't know. I don't know if it's probably.
We need to get that data transparency and take a look at what firm. If it was a Danish firm, was it?
There's a lot of Portuguese people hired by
Okay.
people that come from Portugal,
Like carpenters and stuff like that.
No, like for the with. I know what you're referring to. With the construction of the Northport station, the new one.
Okay, they got a bunch of.
There were a lot of Portuguese people, and with the metro as well. I think a lot of the
are the Portuguese
crew
considered? Are they considered good at building shit?
I think they're cheap and they're also kind of somewhat easily exploitable because
there you go. That's what you want.
Well, I know a lot of them. I heard about them in the news because they were basically being put. Like living in these places where
nobody else would live. Like wouldn't live.
It's not even a living place. It's like there's a bunch of walls and then there's mattresses and that's it. You know.
Well, I mean that's what you want in a labor force, right? Highly exploitable, doesn't ask for much, can't speak the language. You just give them a shovel and tell them to do some shit. I mean, those are the kind of immigrants you want, right?
Yeah, those are the well-behaved ones as well.
Yeah,
the ones that don't complain when you give them
that fucking
piece of bread and the
banana.
banana.
All right, don't let me start getting tilted again. I'm gonna start getting upset about this whole anti-immigration thing in here. What else do we really have now? There's free concerts at Pumpehusel.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them were announced. 50 or something?
And isn't there some free summer concerts in Christiania?
There is. There's also a list of concerts in. Is there a name like in front of across from Nemoland? There's a stage there.
I forget what it's
called.
And
they're gonna have concerts.
Yeah, should we look that up?
I don't know if it's every week.
I think it is every weekend.
Or like but it might be more than once a week. But
events at Nemoland. Let's look. Okay.
There's Sundays concerts at least, and all these concerts are free, by the way. The ones in Christiania.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
They just kind of encourage you to maybe buy a beer or two, or a water.
Yeah.
But is there a list of the artists?
That's what I'm trying to find. Their website is not the greatest. Yeah, if you go to nemoland.dk, I think they have each one of these dates here. Yeah, you have China, the
Yeah.
Mines of '99. They have every single individual date and artist listed here. So you should probably just check out nemoland.dk.
Yeah, to be fair, I don't think I know any of
Any
those.
name, I don't
No.
think it even matters because honestly, we were there a few times before and we didn't know who was playing either. And it still sounded pretty fucking good. And on top of that, I mean, in a way, you're going to be out there in the summer, in the sun, enjoying some time, playing some backgammon, maybe having a beer, whatever. And with your friends talking. I mean, if you don't like the music, it's just background noise. And if you kind of like it, well, then you can kind of nod your head to it. It doesn't really matter that much.
Yeah.
It's just more about being out and checking the shit out.
And I mean, it's more lively. And either way, even if you don't have concerts, if you don't like music, I mean, even if you don't have concerts, there's always some kind of noise or people just banging on something or playing on a JBL or something like that.
Yes, that's right.
But no big names, at least.
No big names, but you know, it's a good excuse to get out into the sun, to get the best fläskesteg sandwich in Copenhagen.
Yeah, tack.
And get a beer, whatever. So, and then Pumpehusel is also giving like 50 free concerts.
Oh, they're free as well.
Uh-huh. In May and June, you can experience no less than 50 free concerts in Pumpehusel. Yeah.
And any names?
I'm kind of looking. The
upcoming names.
It kicks off on May 11th, which is, what's that, next weekend? You won't be here, will you?
Yeah, I'm not here next weekend.
Oh,
no.
darn it. Bands like Girls Night Out, Wolverine, and Rita Blue. I haven't heard of any of those, but that's fine because it's free and you can't complain when it's free, okay?
And Pumpehusel,
it's a great venue.
Yeah, it's a great venue, and they don't just pick random names. They actually have, I mean, they might not be all of them, or not all of them might be to your liking, but they usually pick stuff that is pretty decent. You might not be into the genre.
Yeah.
But
May 18th plays the Danish quintet Prunes, who created a distinctive sound that mixes 80s synths with 70s ability to forget consciousness in the creation of music in a delicious cocktail of dreamy, floating music. Boy, doesn't that sound...
that sounds delightful.
Appealing. I mean, even this video they have here, or this thumbnail, looks quite psychedelic.
Danish language music.
Mm-hmm. Some Danish group, Tower. Or is this translated? Torn?
Yeah, I think it might be.
Yeah, so okay, some of this is translated, so maybe my names are not right. Is it going to be called Prunes?
Prunes.
It is called Prunes, actually, legitimately.
Well, you can actually see on the YouTube video there that says Prunes.
So the Danish group Torn. And some critically acclaimed rock band, Mellem Blonde.
Check them out. I mean, there's...
Pumpehusel is a great venue.
It's free.
We went and watched Cunning Linguists there.
Yeah, I saw 13th floor elevators. Actually, I've been there twice.
The sound is great. The setup is great. The smoking area is really convenient. Like if you want to go smoke, there's a bar upstairs. We vape and we don't actually smoke cigarettes or anything, but we do the electronic nicotine. But it's just so convenient. You walk up just a few stairs. You can still hear everything. You're still part of it. They don't like kick you out into the outside where you feel like not a part of the event anymore.
It's a bit chilly though if it's winter.
It's going to be summer.
Well, yeah, sure. I'm just saying on the winter.
Enough.
It's the only, I guess, complaint that very minor complaint.
So that's pretty much it. We got one more thing, which is the review of the Hungry Dane, formerly the Hungry Duck.
Yeah,
we ate there.
So there's this new burger restaurant.
Do you consider it a burger?
I think it must. I think it should.
Pulled
okay,
pork,
I mean it's not beef.
Pulled pork sandwiches and duck confit sandwiches. It's not really a burger per se. It has burger buns, but it's got like some Michelin star type shit in the actual inside the actual buns. It's not a beef burger. It is a sandwich.
I am sorry. I've offended some American sensibilities right now.
I mean, you can't call it a burger.
I am sorry. I take all the blame. It's my fault.
Okay, but what did you think about it? You had the pulled pork sandwich with the goat cheese?
I think I had duck.
Did you?
I think so.
I thought you had pulled pork. I had the duck.
You had the duck.
Yeah.
To be honest, I can't remember what I had anymore. But it was some kind of pulled stuff. But even the duck was probably made the same way.
Yeah.
Like it's not like they're going to give you a duck steak.
No.
You know?
It's like
breast.
pulled apart meat. But I thought you had the pulled pork with the feta cheese, or not feta,
goat cheese. I got goat cheese for sure.
And I had the duck confit with double cheddar cheese because I told the guy I was allergic to salad. I didn't want any salad on my sandwich.
Which is somewhat true, by the way.
It's basically true anyways. And so he said, "Oh, I'll give you extra cheese." And it was quite good, actually. I thought it was easily like a 7 or 8 out of 10.
Yeah, this place is on Gameltoe. It's right on the corner, right next to Penthouse and across from Yo Burger.
Yeah.
And it has an interesting story because it used to be called what? Ugly?
Well, no,
not ugly.
Well, even before that location has been cursed. There's been a bunch of stores and shops that have come and gone from that particular corner. Before it was a juice bar, and before that, I don't remember what it was, but like it has changed ownership, that little piece of land, and it has changed whatever restaurant or bar was there like at least like 3 times since we've been there. So now, originally it was called Hungry Duck. And they had a little icon that looked kind of like Donald Duck, or that was their logo. And I have a feeling that they changed it to Hungry Dane and changed the duck to a dog because of some legal concerns.
Yeah, that's the rumor going around.
But there was a Michelin-starred chef that reviewed it and said it was the best burger in Denmark. I mean, I don't agree with calling it a burger, but he was pretty stoked about it. The guy, we met him there that was working there, that presumably owns the place.
Yeah, it certainly felt like that. I didn't ask him.
He was really proud. Like, he seemed like really proud and like also very engaging with us, and very cool guy. And the fries were pretty good. I will say initially they were a little soggy.
The fries looked soggy and they were not really crispy.
But they were good.
They were much better than they looked like. The burger, or well, let's call it a burger just for simplicity of language. Mm-hmm. I thought it tasted good, but it didn't entirely fulfill my expectations.
Well, you had already been told that it was the best burger Eska had ever had, which is a friend of ours, who had went there and said he had the same one, and he thought it was one of the best burgers he ever had. That's what he told Morten. And that is a friend's recommendation. And then on top of that, there's this thing that says this Michelin-starred chef thinks it's the best sandwich or best burger in town. And I agree. I thought it was really good. It was like an 8 out of 10 at least. The sandwich was amazing. I really did like it. Is it the best burger in town? Is it the best sandwich in town?
Not even a burger.
I have to say that I feel probably like the burger at Greasy Spoon is the best burger in town for me. I haven't tried Gasoline Grill. I haven't tried Jaeger. So I can't compare them to those. I haven't even tried Tommy's. But out of all the other burgers I've tried,
I think part of the reason why my expectations might have not been met, or that I feel this way, is because at the end of the sandwich, I enjoyed it. I really liked it, but I remember feeling like
you could have eaten more.
Well, yes, I could definitely have eaten more, but I feel like that almost always. So that's besides the point. But I remember just thinking, man, I wish this had been beef. So my let's say my review might be influenced by maybe I just felt like a beef, like a real burger on that day.
Anyways, I thought it was great. Easily an 8 out of 10 from me for the duck confit. I think if you go there, you'll have a great. You will enjoy it no matter what. And it wasn't very expensive, was it? It was like 100 crowns for a burger and fries.
1 or 110 for a burger and fries.
Okay, it's slightly. I mean, it's not
the
cheap,
cheapest.
no.
But I mean, yeah, I liked it. I do recommend it.
Yeah.
But but it's not a place that I would be going like once a week, No. Like it's not something that I like that much. It didn't really impress me in that way, especially after the reviews.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess that's going to be about it for us, isn't it?
For now.
But if you like it, you can check us out on Facebook now.
Yeah, check out our Facebook page now.
Unfiltered Copenhagen. We're on SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher. And that's pretty much it. I mean,
the thing is, once you're on iTunes, you show up on all these podcast apps as well. So I kind of suppose that right now you can find us almost anywhere in terms of like podcast places.
The only problem right now is the Google ranking. Like if you search Unfiltered Copenhagen in Google, you don't really see our page on the top result because there's a bunch of, I guess, other conflicting type things, not necessarily related, just shows or things that are called Unfiltered or things about Copenhagen.
That will change with time.
We'll get high in the ranking, but you can search us on those other actual platforms like iTunes and SoundCloud and Facebook, and you'll find us.
Yeah, and you can email us at unfilteredcph@gmail.com.
Yeah, if you want to be on the show, if you think you're an interesting fit.
Or just let us know what you think, what you like, what you don't like, what we could talk about. If you have some
if you got a story to share, especially if you got a story to share about this immigration success or failure.
Or about something else. I mean, I don't want to just talk about immigration all the time, to be honest.
Anything really, but so that's it.
Yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it.
So will we have one next week?
I'm not here next week. So, but we might record one maybe Monday or Tuesday, and
like
then
in advance.
Just save it.
Okay.
We'll see.
All right. We'll see you next time.
All right. See you guys.